come on. Of the Lich Lord. Scenario 1, Total Eclipse. The board should be set up as per a standard game of Frostgrave. Treasure for this scenario follows the rules of a standard game of Frostgrave. Treasure tokens. These are not going to do it. I need something better. Oh, hey guys, welcome back to Black Magic Craft. All of this elaborate Frostgrave stuff that I've made to make a really immersive game. And I'm using these little green wooden beads as treasure tokens. That ends today. Let's make something way friggin' better. This was meant to be a simple and fast project, but I encountered my first obstacle immediately. These tokens needed bases, so I dug through my collection of plastic bases and was only able to find a couple that were the size I wanted. I wanted these to be small tokens, and I only had a few plastic ones that size. A trip to the store just to find something that would work would delay the start of the project by a few hours, so instead I dug around the house trying to find an alternative. This was one of those times where I wish I dealt with cash more and had some change on hand, as pennies or dimes would have been fine. In the end, I found some small washers. The size of these were perfect, but the hole in the middle, well, that would be a bit of a problem. I decided to prime them before doing anything. This way, whatever I used to fill the holes would adhere better than it would to just raw metal. While the primer dried, I started digging through my collection of bits to find appropriate items to act as the treasure. I wanted these tokens to be more accurate to the game than just big piles of gold. The treasure you collect in Frostgrave are things like books, scrolls, potions, gold, and the odd weapon. Thematically and mechanically, giant piles of gold and treasure items don't make sense. So for each token, I chose one or two small items. Relics the warband could conceivably find in the melting snow and actually carry out of battle. Most of what I found came from Mantic's terrain crate sets, as they are full of great little pieces, but I also used a few WizKids items that I had on hand. To really get the small individual pieces looking right, I actually ended up cutting up some of the already small sculpts into tinier portions. To fill the holes in the washers and create little mounds for the treasure to sit in, I used some milliput. I wanted to make sure it bonded well, so I tried applying some super glue to the washers while putting on the milliput. This was a nightmare. It didn't work. It was messy and sticky, and I stopped that idea after like the first try and just moved on without it. With the milliput still soft, I placed my pieces of treasure. I needed a few more items than I thought, so I grabbed some leftover accessories from a sprue of Frostgrave soldier minis. These sets are awesome because they leave you with so many usable leftover bits. I spray primed everything black, and I didn't even wait for the milliput to cure. I was pretty sure this would be fine, but I didn't know, so just in case, I reached out and asked some of my fellow creators, and Trent from Miscast said, yeah, it was fine. He had done this before.
It's fine. I've done it before.
So I gave it a go and I primed uncured milliput. Then I realized shortly after that black primer was a silly choice, considering the majority of the tokens would end up as white snow. I batch painted these as quickly and efficiently as possible, blocking out a bunch of the same color across the set to save time. Despite doing a fast paint job, I did, however, go through the effort of using several different washes. Reichland Flesh, Agrax Earthshade, Nuln Oil, wherever they were the most appropriate. After the washes, I did do a minimal amount of highlighting, mostly focusing on the bottles, as I wanted them to at least look a little bit like glass. I wasn't happy with the way the labels I had painted were looking, but then I remembered something that was in my garbage can from the previous project. The aged paper from the bulletin board would make perfect little labels. I cut out small squares that contained a tiny bit of image or text, and using some gloss Mod Podge, I added them to the bottles. I chose gloss Mod Podge for this because, well, it's the only Mod Podge I own that isn't pre-mixed with black paint, and a little bit of gloss on the bottles wouldn't hurt. I feel quite pleased with myself for thinking of this little detail. Before applying my snow texture, I painted out the remainder of the bases in white, and I just used basic flat white craft paint for this. This would give some room for error if my snow flocking didn't cover everything. For the actual snow, I used a bit of snow flocking from greenstuffworld.com, mixed with watered down PVA glue to create a snow paste that I could apply with a sculpting tool. This creates a really wonderful effect that is also incredibly durable. Once dried, it's like cement and it won't be constantly falling off. Using a paste like this also allowed me to give the impression the treasure was partially buried in the snow, and the snow flocking would blend in perfectly with the portion of my boards that had the same material. This project was really easy, but it was also super fun. Sometimes it's really refreshing to just make something out of pre-made bits instead of trying to sculpt everything yourself. These pieces turned out great, and they're really practical, and they will perfectly suit my terrain. If you want to grab any tools or supplies and support the channel in the process, consider doing your shopping through my essential equipment page on blackmagiccraft.ca. There I list all of the stuff that I use and that I love, so you get the right items and I earn a small commission through the affiliate links to help fund the production of videos like this. If you enjoy the work that I do for the community and you get a lot of value out of it, you can help ensure that I can keep doing it by supporting Blackmagic Craft on Patreon. I'd love to have you as the newest member of the fellowship, and your support would go a really long way to helping me help the community and the hobby. I don't know about you guys, but I sure think these new treasure tokens are a massive improvement over the little green beads that I was using previously. Now don't get me wrong, using whatever you got on hand to make the game happen is totally cool and totally fine, and those little beads served us just fine in our games up until this point. But seeing these much nicer ones on the table gives me a sense of satisfaction, and I think helps with the immersion and enjoyment and even kind of the excitement when playing a tabletop game. I hope that you found this video enjoyable, entertaining, most of all, inspiring. If you did, hit that like button and let me know in the comments section below. That's it for this week, guys. I will see you again next week. Treasure for this scenario follows the rules of a standard game of Frostgrave. Treasure tokens.